On the Crested Butte Home podcast today, my guest does all of the fun stuff from surfing and snorkeling to dirt biking, rock climbing, ice climbing, skiing, mountain biking, and mountaineering. We spent the most time talking about mountaineering because he has some great stories to tell. One of them was from Denali, North America's highest peak, and it got off to a crazy start when the plane crashed. And then we talk about an attempt on Peru's highest mountain, and they ran into some weather, and even after they got off of the mountain and thought everything was going to be easy, it definitely wasn't. So, great stories, both of those. Then we spent some time talking about Gunnison Valley Mentors, which is a big brother, big sister type organization here in the Gunnison Valley that he has also been involved with. And finally, we talk about COVID, and sadly my guest caught the disease back in early February or early March, and even now in October he is still suffering from that disease, and he's trying to find help all across the U.S., seeing doctors, and just trying to get better, because he is one of those unlucky people who is really suffering from it quite a bit. So hopefully my guest today, Jay Prentiss, gets better real soon, and I hope you enjoy the interview with him. Today on the Crested Butte Home podcast, my guest is Jay Prentiss. So start by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
I am originally from New York. Was born and raised there, but moved to Gunnison when I was 17. Live in Crested Butte. Been there for quite a few years, 20-something years, and own altitude painting in Crested Butte, and pretty much spend my time in the mountains there.
Gotcha. Well, what was it like growing up in New York in that area? What were you into?
I was kind of the run-of-the-mill kid, I would say. Played in the woods, played a lot of soccer, wrestled, just sports. Basically, I was really into sports. We spent a lot of summers in Pennsylvania. Our summers, when we would be out of school, we'd spend in Pennsylvania, and we lived on a river. And it's funny, I have a 4-year-old son and Ryder, and we were just there, just leaving there. And kind of showed him my life in the summers there, which were great, living on the river. We didn't have running water. We didn't have a bathroom. We used an outhouse. We took our showers in the river with soap, and just dunked in the river. And we'd pump water out of a well, carry it back to our little cabin. It was cool. Summers were cool. And then during the school year, we lived in a regular house, totally normal, running water, electricity, everything. We had no electricity, anything in the summers. It was pretty cool. So I lived kind of two pretty cool lives.
Is that summer house still like that? Like, were you just there, and is it whoever has it now, or do you guys still have it, your family? Or
Yeah, if it's in the family. There's a whole section of this Delaware River that my family owns. There's like 7 or 8 families that all own along the river, and all the cabins are pretty rustic. We have since put in water, electricity. There's a refrigerator now, and we used to have an ice box that we used in the summer when I was a kid. But there's electricity now, but it's still a very old cabin. It's right on the river, and it's very rustic. Yeah, and that's where we were just hanging out. My family still kind of lives around there.
Nice, very cool. So how'd you end up in Crested Butte and Gunnison then?
Well, I ended up going to Western State, or whatever it's called now, Western University or whatever.
Right.
No, I went to Western State College. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was a ski racer, and I got a letter from Western that said, come to college here and ski race at Western. So I applied, and they accepted me, and I got accepted to a few other colleges. But honestly, it's the only place I wanted to go, and I had never actually been to Colorado. I was like 2, I think. My family, we took a trip there, but not since I remembered I'd ever been to Colorado. And so, I packed up and flew out there. I had my down jacket on because I'd heard it was the coldest place in the country in August, and I honestly thought it was going to be cold when I got there. Of course, it was like 85 or 90 in Gunnison when I arrived, but still had my down jacket on.
Nice. So you didn't do like one of those college visits or anything? That was like first time you'd seen Gunnison?
First time I'd seen Gunnison. I was actually pretty surprised when I got off the plane. I thought maybe I was in the wrong place because I had gotten all the pictures of Crested Butte, keep in mind pre-internet,
Right.
and I was like, man, this doesn't look a whole lot like the pictures. Gunnison was great. I loved it there. Yeah. And I ended up having a great time going to school there, but it's not my first impression was not what I expected it to be when I landed in Colorado. I was expecting all these big mountains around the university.
Yeah. What was it like back then? Can you remember like the differences back then compared to now?
It kind of similar. I mean, it was quiet. Gunnison was a cow town still for sure back in the 80s. And, every generation has their, it was always better before or whatever after. It was great and it's still great. But I remember, there wasn't a whole lot going on in Gunnison from there was no rec center. We had the rink there, but it was, pretty basic, the ice rink. And there wasn't a whole lot happening, but it was great. I mean, it was really similar. The mountain, they had the free ski thing going on. So it was pretty popular back then skiing. And, I hitchhiked everywhere. There was no bus service. I didn't have a car. At least my first year, possibly my second. I think maybe just my first year. So we hitchhiked everywhere. It was great. It was a great place to live. I mean, it was a great place to go to college. I wish there was maybe a little bit more diversity and maybe a few more girls in the university, but at the time, but it was pretty good. We had a good time.
So did you stay in Gunnison that whole time, or did you go back east? What did you do after college?
After I graduated from college, I went back east and I lived in New Jersey for about 4 years. I started a business back there, buying and selling cars and boats and motorcycles and that kind of thing. And I got a degree in business from Western, and I should have. Well, it was great. I mean, I would have preferred to stay in Colorado, but I felt sort of, this obligation to start a business and get a career and all that. And that was great. But I just really didn't. I missed Colorado. I didn't really enjoy living in the East Coast. I didn't connect with it anymore, and I really missed Colorado. So after 4 years, I just kind of sold out and sold everything. Sold my house, sold all my vehicles. I bought a van and kind of slowly made my way back to Crested Butte, living in a van.
and at that point, you didn't start another business, right? You just kind of had fun for a while, right?
Yeah, I took a year basically and just had fun. I mean, I had made some money in that business and I was doing pretty well. I sold my house and made some pretty decent money. I stashed a little money away from the sale of the house I bought when I moved to New Jersey. I bought a house for $45,000 in New Jersey, which was great. I didn't have any money down. The owner financed it for me. It was great. And then when I sold it, I was able to make some money. So I put that away because I knew I wanted to buy a house eventually wherever I landed, which, was Crested Butte. But I traveled around for about a year and just had fun. I skied and rock climbed and ice climbed and mountaineered and mountain biked and kayaked. I just did it all. I had a great time. And I was scuba diving, snorkeling, surfing, whatever I could do, I was doing. I was having a great time.
Well, I think that's about when we met, and at the time you were training to climb Denali, and I remember you said the first thing that happened when you got there is that they dragged the body bags over to you. So let's hear the full Denali story.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I look back on that. So we were one of the first ones in on the mountain for the spring climb. Sort of, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was early May, real early May. It might have been late April, but I think it was early May. And there was a lot of weather, a lot of snow that year. And we really wanted to fly in. So we found a pilot that would fly us in, even though he said the weather was a little iffy. And back then, I think, it was all kind of line of sight flying. There wasn't any GPS or anything. So we flew in and we were excited to get going on the climb and get in there pretty early. And they had set up the camp and everything whenever that was. So there were some rangers there. But when we flew in, the weather was kind of bad and we had some clear weather flying in, but then it got sort of socked in. And the pilot just sort of misjudged our location to the landing strip on the Cahill and the glacier there. And he ended up coming down too fast. And we hit the runway sort of too far along and just sort of bounced. The plane just sort of bounced. And right before we hit, the pilot said, he looked over at me, and I was thinking to myself, wow, didn't have a lot of experience in small planes. I was thinking, wow, this is really much crazier than I expected this landing to be. And he just looks at me. I was in the front seat, and he goes, sorry about that, folks. And that's it. And then we crashed. And I didn't have a minute or a second to even think about crashing. I didn't realize we were really crashing. I was just like, my thought was, what's he apologizing for, And the plane hit, and it hit so hard it kind of ripped the landing gear off, and it sort of shot back up. I don't know exactly how. And we were sort of aiming for Mount Hunter at that point, and I was thinking, okay, this is a really rough landing. Like, I don't think this is right. And then we just kind of spiraled down and crashed into the glacier. The plane was totaled. It ended up getting Chinooked out a few weeks later. And, it was pretty banged up. I hurt myself a little bit. But I don't know. I guess when we landed, I thought, wow, I can't believe we're alive. And I think the reason we lived through it was there was a lot of snow, a lot of new snow, and the snow was deep. So I think we had a bit of a soft landing.
Right.
But the crash was bad enough. The plane was pretty twisted up. The wings were kind of off the plane, or at least bent up pretty bad. And there was a lot of fuel dumping at the time. And so the pilot was pretty banged up, and we didn't know what to do because there was crevasses all over, obviously. So we decided to get out of the plane. I was kind of wedged in. We were able to get out, and the pilot was the most injured. There were 4 of us on the plane, and 3 out of the 4 got injured, but no one was seriously injured, and 1 was not injured at all. And we were in the end, we were fine. But the Rangers were kind of hoofing through the glacier, putting wands down through the crevasses, figuring they were picking up bodies. But when we crawled out of the plane, they were sort of surprised to see us all moving anyway.
Yeah.
A little blood here, a little injury there, but overall, not too bad considering.
And then, did you go back home, or did you still give it a go?
Well, there was. I really wanted to stay. It was just me and a buddy. There were 4 of us on the plane, but only the 2 of us were climbing together. We didn't have a guide or anything. We're just doing it on our own. And we just decided that we were just going to lay low at base camp a couple days, see how my back held up, and go for it. And we ended up going for it. I was pretty hurt. My back was pretty hurt. But we went for it, and, you kind of suffer on Denali anyway, so it didn't make that big of a difference being hurt or not hurt.
It couldn't have been too fun having an injured back, and you're carrying pretty heavy loads up and down this mountain a couple times. So,
yeah, I think we went a little heavy. We probably could have gone a little lighter. We probably had 100-pound bags. I'm guessing they were heavy. They were very heavy. Yeah, and it was definitely an adventure, but it wasn't bad. I was just glad to be up there.
Nice. Well, I know another mountaineering trip you took was to Peru, and that one had this epic story of you getting off of the mountain, which was Huascaran, which is the highest mountain down there. So let's hear that story too, because that's another good story.
Yeah. Just so I've had a couple successful mountaineering trips too.
Okay.
We'll talk about these because
we're just talking about the fun stuff.
Yeah, the fun stuff, right?
But yeah, we showed up, we climbed it. It was easy. That's not a good story.
Yeah, that's true. We had a couple easy ones. Never easy, but a couple good ones. So Peru, we flew in there looking to get a few peaks, and we did a couple warm-up peaks, and they were pretty good. Everything went really smooth. And we decided for Huascaran, the season, I can't remember what month it was, but it was sort of monsoonal season. And my buddy and I, it was very early again. We like to go early and try to be the first one or first few groups on a mountain, just to kind of feel like you're out in the wild a little bit more. And we started out pretty good. We had a few good days getting there, and it was really nice. And Peru's beautiful, and we got up on the glacier and we camped out a couple days and did a couple little climbs, and then we decided to go for the summit on one day. And we got up, the weather was kind of iffy, and we decided to go for it. I don't remember exactly, but we were somewhere in the 19 to 20,000 foot range, and a bad storm came in, and we had known there was some lightning and thunder up high and some bad storms, but they had usually cleared out pretty quick. For some reason, this one did not clear, and we kind of expected it to come in and leave, and it didn't. And we ended up getting caught in the dark in a blizzard. I want to say somewhere by the time, we turned around in the storm, somewhere around 19 or 20, maybe 19,000.
And Huascaran, what, 22 something?
I don't remember exactly. I think it's 22. Yeah. And we were somewhere in the 20,000 range when we turned around or something. We still had the ridge to the summit. Some people might remember that better than me, but we ended up not being able to get back down. The snow covered our track. We couldn't see anything. It was late. It was snowing. It was lightning, and there was a lot of digging into like the edge of a crevasse, a cave, and we ended up bivvying for the night, and it was rough. I was pretty ill. I typically do not get altitude sick at all, and I don't know if I had altitude sick or was just plain scared. I'm still not sure to this day which one it was. But we had a few moments where avalanches came down and actually filled in our snow cave that we had built, and we had to dig ourselves out. It was interesting, but we ended up making it through the night, and the next morning we down climbed the mountain, and it was really hard to tell where we had come up. It was the whole mountain, the whole landscape had changed, so we kind of just had to figure it out. And I fell into a crevasse on the way down just because all the snow bridges were kind of covered with fresh snow. And luckily my buddy was able to catch me, and I was able to ice climb out of it. It was scary, but it wasn't too bad. And we made it out. And when we got to the bottom, we kind of were like, okay, we made it. We spent the night in this little village. And the next morning we woke up, and the whole country, as anybody who's been to Peru kind of knows, was in revolt, and there was like a huge uprising, and people were, so we're kind of stuck in this little village. And eventually we got someone to give us a ride out, and I'll make a really long story short, but in the end, he didn't make it very far before he got in trouble and pulled out of a car, and they told us to run. We ran, cars were burned, people were shooting from the hills, ran through a couple towns, and we ended up hiking about 20-something miles after getting off that mountain through like a war zone. We got a ride in a truck for a mile or two before it got shot at. We jumped out of there. So we had quite an interesting trip, but we ended up making it back to the town we were staying, and had a really fun few days after that. Once the uprising or whatever, revolt or whatever they call them down there, kind of calmed down.
Oh man, after all that on the mountain to then go into people danger instead of mountain danger has got to be quite a trip. And all you're thinking about is a warm bed and some food, right?
Yeah, and we didn't have any food. I remember my buddy Tyson, who was with me, had some saltine crackers, and if I remember, like a goo or two. And there's these little stores all over, but everything was shuttered and boarded up, and nobody wanted you in, and we just couldn't eat. So we ended up hoofing off that mountain. I definitely was looking forward to a warm bed, and yeah. I can't remember, the pisco sour or whatever it is we were drinking then.
In the Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, more than anything, we need more inventory to sell. I have some great clients with very realistic expectations that I just can't seem to find properties for. So if you or anyone you know is thinking of selling, give me a call. My name's Frank Consella. My website is crestedbutterealestateagent.com, or you can just email me, frank@cbrealestatepro.com, or give me a call, 970-596-7990. And let's get back to the interview with Jay.
Well, let's totally switch up the subjects. I know you've been involved with Gunnison Mentors for a long time. So what is that organization? Why'd you get involved?
Well, when I moved back to Crested Butte in the 90s, sorry, my son's in the backseat. Right. Yeah. I got involved with the mentoring program. It was called the Gunnison Partners back then. And basically it's like a big brother, big sister program. And, they just take at youth risk and try to partner them up with mentors to kind of try to enrich their lives, basically, and help them out. So I got involved and was a mentor for quite a few years to quite a few kids. And then I'm going to say a handful of years ago or more, I got involved on the board of directors, and now I'm involved with them on their board. Unfortunately, I haven't been involved lately, as you know, because I've been very sick. But before that, I was very involved with the mentors program and trying to help them, really be part of the Gunnison Valley. And it's a great organization.
Why'd you pick, there's so many opportunities to volunteer around here. Why that one? What made you think that was the one for you?
Well, I do volunteer for quite a few different organizations, but I'd say that's the one I spend the most time with. I'd say the main reason is, I feel like every kid could use a mentor. Every kid, whether you come from a great family or, a not so great family or a medium kind of family, every kid could use a mentor. And I think that, our youth is obviously our future. And the more kids that we can, give a good future to, I think the better off our whole world will be. Not to mention, I just have a thing for people being happy. And a lot of these kids were struggling. And, I really wanted to help. And I thought it was a really good way to, get direct result with help. You help these kids, you see them improve, and you see the direct result.
Have you kept in touch with some of those kids? They're probably in their 30s now, right? How are they doing?
Yeah, I actually do. Yeah. Facebook is, I'm not a big Facebook person, but I actually see them on Facebook and occasionally keep in touch with some of them. And it's really good. Yeah, they're doing great.
Well, yeah, you just mentioned it, and I wanted to talk about that too. So you've been sick because you got COVID, and that was 6 months ago, but you're still feeling it. So talk about the start of that sickness and how that's gone a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of become my identity lately, which is interesting because never in a million years would I have ever thought that I would get sick from what I heard and thought of as a cold. At the beginning, I got sick in either late February, early March, before any lockdowns or anything. I certainly didn't think I had COVID because at the time I remember sitting on my couch watching a press conference with our president and saying, it's not in the United States. We'll never have more than 500 cases. And I was thinking, well, I got a cold, but it's definitely not COVID, certainly not COVID. Well, in the end it was. But it started out, really minor. I don't even know if I had any symptoms to begin with, other than I had a little bit of a scratchy throat and kind of had some fatigue. And I remember sitting at a restaurant one night with Krista, my wife, and I said to her, I was drinking a beer and having a hamburger, and I said to her, I pretty much feel as odd as I've ever felt in my life. I just feel like something is really wrong with me. I need to go lie down. And I went and lied down that night, and woke up the next morning and went for a mountain bike ride. It wasn't that bad. I felt okay. Was in Crested Butte then, and, just sort of had a kind of a couple of days where I felt fatigued and tired. I never had a cough. I never had a fever. And one day I went for a ski on the mountain on Crested Butte, just to skin up the mountain and down, just to get a workout. And I felt this burning in my chest. And I thought, wow, I usually reserved for 40 below days to get that kind of burn, But okay, whatever. Went home, had a couple normal days. And then one night I just stopped breathing. I went from feeling mostly fine, like a minor cold, to not being able to breathe at all. And I ended up in the emergency room. And I have, 7 months later, I still have not had a normal day. Not one normal day in 7 months of being able to breathe well.
Wow.
Since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been going on. I know you've been...
It's life-changing. It's been life-altering for me.
Yeah.
I'm good at suffering. This has been beyond suffering. This is pure hell, honestly. Yeah, pure hell.
Makes that thing getting off of Huascaran in Peru seem like a cakewalk, eh?
Yeah, I would take those experiences 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
This. I put myself in those positions. This
right.
is sort of very unique. Yeah, sort of an accident or whatever. I don't know what it was. But.
Right. So I know you've been trying to find help and find somebody who can, but this is a brand new disease, which people forget. They don't have 10, 20 years of research on this thing. I mean, are you finding anything out? Are you getting anywhere with any of this, or?
I don't know. I mean, I find a lot of stuff out that people take or whatever or do that seem to help them. And I'm doing whatever I can that I learn from doctors or just, people who have been in a similar situation as me. But no, I mean, nothing has made me better. It's unbelievable. There are no answers right now. And it is, for someone that's pretty determined in everything I do, whether it's fitness or my business or whatever, I am so determined to find out what's wrong with me and get better. And I've seen some of the best doctors in our country, and I've traveled around to see them. I actually went as far as buying a camper van and putting my family in there and leaving our home and traveling around, quarantining ourselves in this van, trying to find the best doctors to help me. And I'm doing better. Obviously, we're talking, and I can breathe and talk now.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing well. I mean, I have days that are good, and I have days that are really, really bad. Like really, really bad. Yeah, scary bad.
Still now, where you're like really struggling to breathe, and at sea level too.
Yeah, I'm here in sea level now. We're seeing this specialist in New York that's really trying to help me. I gave 24 vials of blood last Wednesday. 24 vials in one sitting of blood last Wednesday. And I've given hundreds of vials in the last 6 months. I can't imagine that I'm in this situation, and I cannot believe that this can happen. But I can tell you now, I'm involved in all these online forums that I track just to try to find out if anybody finds anything out. And there are tens of thousands, probably way more than that I'm in contact with through these forums, that are having this long-term COVID issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even in Crested Butte, I feel like there's a lot of people who don't have it anywhere near as bad, but they still have a little something, whether it's just still a loss of taste or mild fatigue, all these other things that just seem to not really go away.
Yeah, there's probably, I've had at least 40 people from Crested Butte reach out to me that have either going through it or doing not well or have gotten worse actually over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like it's, I don't know. I hate to even speculate. I'm too nervous to admit that this could be a lot worse than what we think. But I'm still having high hopes that I'm going to make a recovery. But there's some signs that this could be bad for some people, some really bad. And it's, who knows? I mean, as far as I was concerned, I was in perfect health before this, perfect health. So I do get frustrated when I see, the advertisements that say, 1% of the population dies and, most of them are old and infirm. That just makes me mad to begin with because, my mom is old and my dad is old and,
yeah, my parents
I don't want them to die. Yeah. Nobody wants anybody to die. I realize people are going to die from a lot of things. We're all on our way to dying, but still no excuse for just letting this go. And I think this long-term thing is going to be pretty devastating for a large portion of our population here from what I've seen and see, going through this.
Yeah. Well, and it's cases like yours that scare me, that keep me being safe and not doing stuff. I'm keeping my guard up, and I hope other people will too. So,
yeah, if I've done anything, I can tell if I've done anything, everyone I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, call me, or email me or text me or whatever. They all say, you or someone I know has kept me from taking, has made me take this much more seriously. And, if I'm totally honest, in early March, when I was basically sick with COVID, I still didn't think it was a big deal. I was like, well, it was cold. This is a big deal. I mean, This is definitely a big deal. This has totally changed my life. Totally, unfortunately, changed my life.
Well, hopefully it'll run its course, or they'll figure something out soon enough. That's all
They
it can
may.
be, right? Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's like part of it too, right? Keep a good attitude. That seems to help people with all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure you have as best you can.
Yeah, there are good days, and I would say I have overall a positive attitude, but I've had some very, very bad days. I mean, if I were totally honest, I always felt like I was strong mentally. This has almost broken me a couple times. But it's my life now. I have to. I have a family. I have a 4-year-old, and if I could go back, I mean, I couldn't have done anything then. We weren't wearing masks. Nobody even knew COVID was in the U.S. But if I had any inkling, I would have just been careful. I mean, you never know. You might get it anyway. But I would have been much more careful. I tell everybody, one piece of advice is just wait till you get this. Every day they're figuring more out. The longer you wait, in a year, possibly, if you got what I got, you would be totally fine and home in a week. I just, didn't get any treatment. I was sent to the hospital, and, I hate to even say this on a podcast, but the hospital basically told us, told my wife, if your husband turns blue in the face or passes out, then call us, and just sent us home and sent me home to die, basically. Yeah. And, it wasn't their fault. I'm not blaming anyone, but it's not a good feeling when you get a common cold and you feel like you're dying. And I came very close to dying, and they tell you to go home and wait it out. Now, they wouldn't do that anymore, which is why you want to wait. At least now they'll give you some treatment and take care of you.
Well, I hope you get better, but let's switch up the subject one more time. And you mentioned it earlier, but you own your own business, which is altitude painting. And I'd love to ask you a bunch of questions about painting, but I'm sorry, painting isn't necessarily quite as exciting about
I talk about that all day
and whatever. But no, why painting? And we'll start there. Why start a paint business?
Well, I painted my way through high school. I mean, since I was pretty young, maybe 13 or 14, I did some painting. I painted my way through high school. I painted my way summers in college. I painted. And then, when I ended up back in Crested Butte, I honestly did not want to own a painting business. But I was skiing, doing a lot of skiing. And I was skiing. I was traveling to Europe a bit for some stuff. And you and I, if you remember, we worked at the Twister warming house in the winter. So, we worked part-time in the winter, and then I would travel, do some ski stuff in the winter. And so it was a great summer job to paint. And I ended up painting for someone, and it didn't work out with them. And I ended up just kind of doing some of my own jobs. And I thought, this is a great summer gig, basically. I mean, I can work in the summer and ski all winter, and it's pretty decent money. And it just sort of evolved. I got a couple employees. One of my actual first employee was Abe Fisher. A lot of people in Crested Butte remember Abe. He was my first employee, great guy. And he and I just sort of, had a good time. And then it became 3 and 4 and 5, and, eventually became 25 employees. And it just sort of grew. If you asked me when I was 21 if I'd own a painting business and live in Crested Butte, that wasn't my goal or aspiration, but it's been good to me. It's a good life, and it's been good.
Yeah, I think I remember talking to you about it one day. Actually, I think you had me help you for a couple of days, and you're like, "Man, I don't want to own a painning business." And I'm like, "Well, no. You're getting all these jobs. I don't know." Like,
yeah, exactly.
Here you are. So, well, since I have a lot of real estate clients that listen to this and stuff too, do you have any advice for homeowners or prospective homeowners about paint? Because it's pretty brutal up here.
Yeah, what I always tell my customers, and we have a lot of repeat customers, obviously, that are with us a long time. I always tell them, the best thing you can do is just maintain your home. I mean, if you're going to spend $1 million on a home or whatever, maintaining it's important, whether it's, the plumbing, the electrical, the paint, the rock work, the driveway, whatever. But yeah, it's maintenance basically. Maintenance is always more affordable than letting it go and then spending the big dollar on kind of repair everything down the road. Yeah. So that's probably my number one advice, is just maintenance and hiring, good contractors, whether it's us or whatever, just hiring people that do good work.
Yeah. Good advice. Well, let's start to wrap it up. Crested Butte is home for you. Why Crested Butte? Why'd you end up here? Why'd you stay here?
Well, there isn't a better place to live in the country. I'm sorry. I can be swayed on a lot of things, but it is pretty much perfect. I could do with a little less crowds, but I think everybody could.
Yeah.
But overall, it has everything that I love, except the only thing it could have is an ocean right next to it. But, you can't have everything. But no, I mean, the skiing is, the best skiing as far as I'm concerned, inbound skiing in the United States, at least. I feel like inbounds, it's as good as it gets. And the mountain biking is, world class. And it's just and it's a beautiful town, end of the road. I just love it. Dirt biking, climbing, everything is good. Kayaking, not bad. It's good.
We definitely have it good here.
Yeah.
Well, people can learn more about you at your website. I'll make sure to put that in the notes. And anything else I should have asked that you just want to talk about?
No, the less I can talk, the better right now.
All right. Okay. Then
it's good talking to you, Frank.
Well, yeah, it has been good. But final question: who else should I interview?
Bart Lemmel.
Already did.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, that was one of the first ones.
Was it? See, I don't listen. I should listen to podcasts like that. Like I told you, I'm not good at listening to podcasts. Oh, now you got me on the spot. Let's see. Logan Jones.
Logan. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of my employees. He's had a long, good life in Crested Butte. He's had a lot of ups and downs, and he lives a unique life. Him and his wife, Chrissy, works at the hospital. Cool guy. Yeah, really cool guy.
Sounds good. All right. I'll give Logan a shout. Well, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time, and I hope you start to feel better real soon, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. Take it easy. Good talking with you.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Crested Butte is Home podcast with me, Frank Kinsella. You can find all episodes at crestedbuteishome.com, or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You can also find my contact information and Crested Butte and Gunnison real estate information at Crested Butte is Home. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back in a couple weeks with a new episode.